Well, hi everyone, and welcome once again to Unstoppable Mindset, where inclusion, diversity, and the unexpected meet. And we do get to talk about inclusion today. And as some of you know who are regular listeners to this podcast, the reason it is inclusion, diversity, and the unexpected is it's inclusion because it is. Diversity comes second after inclusion, because if you talk to people about diversity, typically they never talk about disabilities. We get left out of the discussion. And then the unexpected is anything that doesn't have anything to do with inclusion or diversity, which is probably most of the guests that we deal with. But today we are going to have the honor of speaking to Freda Uwa. And Freda is the executive director of Independent Living Canada, which has responsibility or works with the 24 independent living centers around Canada. And so I'm really looking forward to learning more about that and hearing about it, and looking forward to hearing all that Freda has to say. So Freda, we want to welcome you to Unstoppable Mindset, and we're really glad you're here.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Well, I love to start kind of a little bit different than maybe some people do. Tell us about the early Freda, growing up and all that sort of stuff. Anything that you want us to know, and you don't have to tell us all your secrets, but tell us about the early Freda.
Oh, that's fun. Thanks, Michael. Freda, the little girl Freda, that's so much fun now. I think about growing up and all of the memories that comes with. So I am privileged to have grown in a close-knit middle-class family in Nigeria. I grew up in Nigeria, one of the countries in Africa, and it was fun, right? No bills, just happy-go-lucky child. I was the one child that had all the burst of energy, and I just loved to laugh. So there was all of that. There was family, faith-based activities, and I also had schooling, of course, and went to college, did my nursing, went on to do a BSc in home science and management, and with an option in nutrition and dietetics. And so all of that was fun. And of course, I enjoyed having to be part of a family that loved to do things together. So that's Freda, or the little girl Freda, yeah.
That's the little girl Freda. Well, that works out pretty well. So you have a bachelor's. Did you go anywhere beyond a bachelor's degree, or?
Yeah, so in Canada, I took a postgrad certificate in nursing leadership and management, and then community mental health certificate as well. So yeah.
Well, that works out pretty well, and certainly kept you busy. And what did you do with all that once you got your degrees?
I evolved.
You
So
evolved. You grew up then, huh?
absolutely, absolutely. So there was a lot of growth that came with that, a lot of responsibilities. I moved to Canada, figured out new path and all of that. So there was all of the growth that happened, and that forces you to evolve. So the degree, the experience, and all of that. So in the short answer is I evolved with that. So yes.
Okay. And so what kind of jobs did you hold?
All my life, you mean, or you're just asking for a period in my
Oh,
life?
so once college was over, what kind of jobs did you actually do then for a while?
Okay, so I am a registered nurse as well. So I'm like,
Right.
I have many parts, right? So I did nursing. I also have a business, a food business as well. So I was into events management and catering at the time. And then the core of what I do now also started in Nigeria, where I um, led a nonprofit for about 4 years before moving over to Canada, did some schooling, and then came back to the space that I love. And that's social services around people, supporting people with disabilities and all of that. So, and that's a pack of all that I did in terms of work.
Hmm. What brought you from Nigeria to Canada?
Um, First of all, it was schooling. Like I came to experience that um, other side of education, right? So I came with that flair, and then family moved over, and now I'm here.
Well, that works out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
We, I, people won't necessarily see it, but we just have company joining us.
I
My my cat has joined us,
I
and
see.
I'm trying to get her up on the back of our desk chair so that she will hopefully leave us alone. Anyway, there we go. Well, so how long ago did you come over from Nigeria to Canada?
I've been in Canada going on 5 years now.
Okay.
I moved here at the peak of not the peak, at the beginning of the pandemic. So I
Yeah.
came in just as I got into Canada, everywhere was shut down. So I'm like, is this the reality? Is this what it feels like being here? So I was almost locked up right away. So yeah, that's my journey. So it's about going on 5 years now.
Wow. So you've been here a while.
Hmm.
So you came over here and you decided that your passion was really working in the arena of disabilities and so on. So what really caused you to do that? Why did you decide that that's what you really wanted to do with your life?
Great question, Michael. So I've always known that I had what I call a greater calling. Like I've always wanted to live my purpose in life. I know I did share that I am a registered nurse in Nigeria and having all of that, and also a business owner in Nigeria. But I find that in all that I did, there was something, there was a missing piece, right? So
Hmm.
I needed to fill that void. And recall that I told you that I grew up in a close knit family setting. So my younger sister, that I love to death, by the way, she has a disability, and I've been her primary caregiver. I was her primary caregiver for a while, and I also watched my mother struggle through that. At some point, my mother's life was almost on hold because she needed to take care of her child. So that in itself um, created the need for me to um, just feel a void, right? So it was beyond just where's the money, right? It was beyond that, and I needed to just live out my purpose and find a career that would really and genuinely make me happy while touching lives in the way that I know how to.
Yeah. Well, and I believe very firmly in the fact that if you're really doing what you like to do, then it isn't really a job. It's a whole lot more fun and it's a whole lot more rewarding.
Absolutely, I'm having fun, Michael. I'm
Yeah,
having fun doing it. So yes.
which is really important to be able to do. What, if I can ask, is the disability that your sister has?
She has intellectual disability,
Ah,
so it's yeah, so it's all, and again with misdiagnosis and all of that, so that's a whole situation going on right there. So that's why that's how come I am like there is a void that needs to be filled, right? So it's all of the complications that comes out from misdiagnosis and her living through that all her life. Yeah.
yeah. Now, is she and your family still in Nigeria, or did they move over here too?
No, my mom and my sister are still in Nigeria.
In Nigeria. Well, I
Yes, they
assume you
are.
go back and visit every so often.
That's all we have.
Yeah, you got to do that. Well, and and when you can't go back, you've got things like Zoom, so you can still look at them and talk to them.
Absolutely. We thank God for technology. So
Yeah,
it's all of that. Yeah.
yeah. Technology has certainly made a significant difference in the whole art of communications over the past, oh, especially 10 years, but certainly in the last 5 years, just because of what the
Hmm.
pandemic has done and so on.
Hmm. For sure.
So, how did you end up specifically deciding to get involved with independent living centers, and how did you end up being the executive director of Independent Living Canada?
Oh, interesting. That's a great question, Michael. So I I say this always. My story and journey has always been that of resilience and just um a journey of self-discovery and awareness. I'll give you I'll share with you, Michael. right as I came into Canada in 2020, at the beginning of COVID, I was in I was I was in on a conversation with a friend at the time, and he was sharing an experience and was speaking to me about somebody and speaking to me about a newcomer who had come into Canada and was leading an organization like an administrator at the time. And this his story was about the consequences of mismanagement of some sort.
Mm.
And he let me know that the the woman got into trouble and was relieved of her job and all of that because she didn't do something right. But while I was listening to that story, a seed was planted in me that, hold on, I've got this experience, I've got this much knowledge, I've got this much abilities, I've got this much skills. Then, if a newcomer could transfer all of that here to Canada and do all of this, that means there is space for me somewhere. So it wasn't more so of, yes, what you shouldn't do. It's nothing, it didn't come to me as though like it's a test for your competence or something. I knew there was a possibility somewhere. So that was when the seed was planted in me. And as soon as I began to look for jobs, I started looking out for the jobs that aligned with what I had done, including my executive leadership in Nigeria. And that was how it happened that I was done schooling and I started looking for opportunities, and I went out to apply for jobs that would speak to my competencies, and the rest, they say, is history. So
Yeah.
that's how the seed was planted. I'm like, okay, yeah, there I go. And I'll tell you what happened with my very first interview, Michael. I I did get called for an interview, an ED role, and I'm not sure if you know about the process with executive hiring. It's a lot of steps. Like you do the phone
Hmm.
interview, you do the writing, you go for like the first phase, the second phase, and all of that. It was really daunting, and I went through all the phases, and I was feeling really confident and good about it. I actually through to the last phase where I had to go in person to see the outgoing ED who was retiring at the time, and kind of like had a meeting slash interview situation that it looked as though I was getting onboarded, but it wasn't like official. So in my head, I felt that this is it. I'm there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I did I did all of that. I went back home, and a couple of days later, I got the email. One of those emails, and I'm like, oh no. So this is it. It's That's no way on from here. Like this is it. And then like, oh, thank you for your time and all of that. So we've moved on to XYZ, and all of those words. I'm like, oh, in that moment, I didn't feel too bad because I felt like, oh, this is my first, and I got this close. Then there's something, right? So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's not too bad. But what happened next was what really got me thinking. I continued my job search, right? So a couple of weeks later, I get an email from the same organization asking if I was still available for the role and for the job. And I was excited again. I'm like, oh, yes, I can. Why not? And then in their response, they wanted to have a second set of interview. I'm like, hold on, what's going on? I'm like, okay, that's not too bad. I will make myself available for the interview. And I did, and I think we had the next one. And I got really worried. And then after that, I got an email saying the same thing, that they had given the role to somebody else. And that got me angry.
Yeah.
Right. So I needed to know what it was. Can you name it? So I sent out an email to them. I'm like, hold on. So what's all this? What's going on? Let me know why I just needed to know. And then they responded to say that I was overqualified for the role. I'm like, that's a dumbest answer, right? So why would you say that to me now that I'm thinking about it, right? So I took all of that in, and I decided to move on from there and just pick up the lessons, and then went forward with that. So that experience in itself shaped me into the resilience of not just giving up, because I knew I was very
Yeah.
close to getting what I wanted, right? So I went on from there and I became I an addictions case manager, addictions and mental health case manager, a job that I really, really loved. It was so beautiful. I had the privilege of flying into the isolated reserves in those little small airplanes and all of that. So I did so many emergency responses, whether it's flood, calls for suicide, and all of those mental health um, work. I really loved that job, but it was so heavy on me. And it was at a time when I was going through a lot in my own self, like emotionally and my mental health. I was by myself in Canada at the time. My family, that's my husband and kids, were still in Nigeria. So the weight of all of that was too much on me. There was nothing to decompress to, if you know what I mean,
Yeah.
right? So you hear all of these heavy things, and you cannot really process your own feelings. And then I'm also thinking about the same situation, and I'm thinking about, oh, what's going on? What's going on in my head? So I didn't stay too long on that job, and then I and also I left because it was too much. Like I said, even though I loved the job, and then I went on to become the CEO of an ability center, which is also supporting individuals with intellectual disabilities. And from there on was when I moved on to IL Canada, and I'm loving it. So that's my story of resilience.
Yeah, it is really tough when you're you're by yourself and you don't have anyone to talk to and to share things with, because talking with someone, talking things out is always important and is always helpful because it helps you put things in perspective. And when you can't do that, it just bottles up inside of you, and that's not good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, but you moved on. So how long have you been in IL Canada now?
I'm going on 1 year in
Oh, okay.
September. Yes, so it's just going on 1 year in September. So yeah, still very new.
So tell me a little bit about IL Canada and then what you do and so on.
Okay, so IL Canada, uh, it's basically a network of independent living centers across the country. It started in it was it started as a movement a long time ago, and
Yeah.
in 1986, it was formerly known as Canadian Association of Independent Living Centers, and um, now Independent Living Canada. So it's all about providing a collective voice on national issues for all of our member centers, and fostering and maintaining partnerships in that regard, building capacity and scaling what we're doing, especially on the national level. So our member centers have their foot soldiers in different communities and different local centers. So they are we've got IL member centers in almost across every province in Canada. It's in Saskatchewan, Ontario, you name it. It's everywhere. So IL Canada, it's we thrive on our four core pillars of service, which would be independent living skills development, peer support, networking and information, and all of the resources that we do. So we provide a national voice for all 24 member centers, and they are all run by different executive directors and offering unique needs to their communities.
So and so what you do is, do you coordinate services? Do you act as more of a case manager and distribute funds, or what does IL Canada do for the 24 agencies?
Right, great question. So, like I said, the 24 agencies or centers are independent of, like they are autonomous, like the source funds and all of that. Even though we provide some subvention, but it is really they are very independent of what we do. So we are like a collective voice for the member centers on the national level. So that's what IL Canada does. There's monthly meetings. There is all of the accreditations that we do, and just ensuring that all accredited member centers are operating within our four core pillars of service that promotes independent living for people with cross disabilities.
What relationship or how do you interact with organizations like the Canadian National Institute for the Blind and so on?
So that in itself, it will totally depend on what project we're working on, right? So it would be project based or research based, right? So we are a national voice for all of our centers. So if any of our centers are partnering with any individual association, that is the partnership we're seeking, and we will support and encourage them. But on the national level, it's usually project based or collaboration in terms of research or information or whatever that looks like, or maybe communities of practice and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, how does, well, let me rephrase that. What does CNIB do as opposed to what the independent living centers do? Do you know?
Again, each independent living center is operating on different, like they have tailored made programs for their centers, right? So some people have communities that they have programs that support vision loss or the blind, and other centers who have programs for youth, employment, housing, transportation. So they're all direct funding to support independent living in terms of managing your resources and other skills. So in that regard, it would naturally lie with the centers and how they want to collaborate with CNIB. So it's for us at the national level, it would mostly be on research or any collaboration on the projects. But to actually reach out to the consumers or participants, it will be the independent centers, like the member centers themselves.
Right. So is CNIB more of a funding agency or well, I know that they do provide services, but I was just trying to understand where the overlap is or how the two types of organizations interact with each other.
I'm not familiar with their model, like I don't know too much about their model. Yeah, but what we do with every organization or most organization is collaboration or partnership, right? So they may have a different funding model. For us at IELTS Canada, each center is working on our four core pillars, providing different programs and services within these four core pillars, and they're at liberty to tailor make these programs to suit their communities.
Okay. So they may work and they may get some funding from CNIB for specific projects and so on, but I understand that you're dealing with being closer to the individual communities where you are.
Oh, for sure. That's with the member centers.
Yeah.
For myself, I am like the administrative head for the national organization, the National IELTS
Right.
Canada.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, so when you've been working and you've now been doing some of this for a while, what would be for you a pivotal moment, given our philosophy or our title, Unstoppable Mindset? Where is a pivotal moment in your life where you had to really demonstrate resilience and unstoppability?
I like that question so much. I kind of feel like I've had so many of those moments, right? I've had the moment where I had to face the pandemic all by myself without my family here. And I'm like, no, so I have to be here for me. I have to be here for my family as well. So all of that is a part of the package, right? And then I also had the moment where I sat in on that conversation with my friend that spoke about that lady, and it planted a seed in my heart. Like there was something for me. If I was going to transfer all of my skills from Nigeria, I could do it, right? And then again, the next big thing that happened to me was having a meltdown on my job as a case manager for mental health and addictions. So all of those moments left me, like you said, with that unstoppable mindset. Like growth is not always linear. Like you get bumps, you get heat, and then you have to get up and you keep moving.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. You've got to make that decision to do that, to make the
Hmm.
decision to move forward. And that's an individual choice. But when
Hmm.
you decide to do it and you stick to it, you get such a wonderful feeling of accomplishment, don't you?
Exactly, exactly. That's yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. So you are able to, to move forward and do the things that you got to do. So
Mm.
you're also unusual in another way in terms of being the first black executive director of Independent Living Canada and one of the first two black leaders in a lot of different areas and aspects of the whole rehabilitation and independent living environment. Does that get to be a challenge for you, or do you regard that as a plus, or what?
I think it's both because
Mm-hmm.
it comes with a lot of pressure for sure, and then there is that feeling of who what's here, like am I finding somebody that looks like me, and what's there to learn from, right? So who's gone ahead before me, and where is all the mentorship, where would that come from, right? But I also find that I've got a ton of support from my board. They are ever so supportive, and yeah, so that has helped. So it's a feeling of there is work to be done, and of course a feeling of accomplishments of some sort, but more so that I've got a bucket to fill with what's been expected. Like I need to give back
Mm-hmm.
with what's been poured into me, right? So that's all of that. But um, in the one hand, I see that I there is a gap. There is a gap in representation for sure. I know we talk about inclusion in terms of people with disabilities, and also thinking about building capacity for young leaders and newcomer leaders coming forward, and making sure that they find mentorship and some form of support to build capacity in leadership in that regard, because they are usually different different levels of expectations from a racialized person as a leader, and a non-racialized person. So it's all of that pressure for sure, and having to face that, and constantly telling your story, or living through barriers, even as a leader, your constant barriers you keep facing, and then kind of rewriting your own story, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Now, you don't have a disability in any traditional sense, right?
I would say undiagnosed, because I don't know. I feel like I know I have something, but it's undiagnosed. So yes.
Well, there you go. Something to figure out, right?
Yes, for sure. And I've always said it. It's a continuum, like it's a spectrum. So everybody's just one life event away from a disability, right? So you never know until you find out.
Well, of course, people have heard me say on this podcast that actually everyone has a disability. For most of you, it's you're light dependent. You don't do well when there isn't light around for you to see what you're doing. Um, and inventing the electric light bulb kind of led to a cover up of your disability, but it's still there. It's just that it doesn't
Hmm.
manifest itself very often. And the reason I think it's important to take that kind of a view is that all too often, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, but all too often, when people think about disability, they think about, well, it's called disability because it's a lack of ability, and it isn't really. But people think less of people who they regard as traditionally having some sort of disability. And the result is that they look down on or think they're better than somebody with a disability. And I adopted the definition that we all have disabilities, they just manifest differently
Hmm.
in order to try to help start to level that playing field and get people to understand that in reality, we all have challenges and we all have gifts. And we shouldn't
Hmm.
look down on anyone just because they don't have some of the gifts that we do.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it, Michael. I have so in recent times in my work, there is this I've ever heard about social location, this phrase called social location, Michael?
I have not heard much about that.
Okay.
I'm not overly familiar with it. So go ahead. I can imagine, but go ahead.
Okay, so that's like exactly where you are on your social map, I would say, just to put it in a
Mm-hmm.
clear way, right? So it's all of those identity markers that make you, right? You might think you have it all here, but in the next high, you're not as much privileged as the next person. So it's being on different spots in that social map, right? So I could be, let's say, I could not have a disability that I know, but in some way I'm disadvantaged, right? So it's all of that coming together and realizing that when we're seeking for inclusion for all, it's actually all, and the definition of all can be expanded to mean actually every single person and
Right.
not just people with disabilities. It's every single person. Ensuring keeping taking into consideration that you are not always at the top all the time. You could be privileged in so many areas, and then you're disadvantaged in some areas. So it's that social location concept that should um, um, that should inform our need to level the playing fields at all time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, all too often people won't adopt that principle and they won't adopt that mindset. So they really think that they're better than others. The unemployment rate among persons with disabilities is still very high compared to the general population. It's still
Mm-hmm.
in the 50 to 60% range. And it's not because people with disabilities can't work, it's that people who don't happen to have those same disabilities think that people with those disabilities can't work. And so as a result, they're never given the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a constant struggle for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And it,
that's why we do what we do.
right, which is very important to do.
Hmm.
So you, you work as the executive director, as the CEO of the organization.
Hmm.
Do you do all the independent living centers then do a lot of work with consumer organizations and other things in their local areas so that they keep very close ties to consumers?
Oh, for sure. Uh, that's the structure of Independent Living Canada, right? So IL Canada and IL member centers are close to their local communities. So all IL member centers are community-based centers. So they're in the communities and partnering with local communities to meet any unmet needs for persons with disabilities.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah.
So now you're obviously more in an administrative kind of role, but what kind of involvement or interactions do you have with like consumers and consumer organizations?
Okay, that's a tricky question, right? So I I've only been here 1 year, so
Yeah,
I
I
can
understand
I can
that.
I can speak to the last 11 months, right? So far, with consumer organizations, I've only partnered in terms of a project or a research. It's still a project, right? So um, whether it's, but I feel like that comes from the centers as well, because the independent living centers get us involved in partnerships that it's just beyond them, right? So we get partnerships, and we need to stand in as a national organization to get 3 or 4 of our IL member centers into that partnership. So that's the level we play, more like the go-between and giving that voice to them. But generally, I am more of the administrator than just
Right.
being involved in consumer um, um, agencies or organizations.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand. That's I was just wondering if if there is involvement or how you ever get to interact with them, because I would think that working with consumer organizations in some manner can strengthen what you do as an
Hmm.
organization.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But
We're open to partnerships for sure, but
yeah, it's a process.
it's a process, and then for sure it's what the local centers are needing, and that's what we are doing at the national level, right? So it's a two-way street with the local member centers. We are nothing without our member centers. So that, yeah.
Right. Right. No, I understand. Well, that is still pretty cool though, and it gives you some freedom, and it gives you the ability to look at things from a higher level. But I would assume that it also gives you the opportunity then to look at how you can work and make a difference in the whole independent living process around Canada.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. There is work for sure, and that's what we have started doing. So there's a lot of traction happening right now, and just taking one day at a time, and reviewing all our partnerships and building other partnerships and collaborating in other areas as well. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Now, I didn't say it earlier, but we met through Sheldon Lewis at Accessibee. So I guess you have you looked at Accessibee as a product, and are you working with Sheldon on that sort of thing, or how is Accessibee involved with the independent living center movement in Canada?
I would say we are currently having that conversation right now. So yes.
Well, so at this point, you're looking to see where it might fit and
Yeah.
how it would work.
Yeah, so we are reviewing all of that. We are reviewing the product and going through the board and test running everything. So yeah, so just in the
Good.
process of reviewing how that works. Yeah,
So you're actually testing it and looking at it to see what it does and doesn't do and so on.
exactly. Yes.
What about the whole concept from your standpoint of internet access and inclusion? The problem that we see overall is that in our world, maybe 3% of websites have really made an effort to put something on their site to make the website accessible or inclusive. But most places still haven't done that. How do we change that?
I think this is as it's still the whole package about starting one step at a time. And I'm very careful. I caution against tokenism and just wanting to do something because you want to check off the boxes, right? So
Yeah.
what's the intention really? Are you really concerned about your consumers, your customers, your clients? Are you really wanting to reach everybody and everybody, right? So what does that look like for you? So yeah, it's concerning for sure that we have such low percentage of people of websites who are looking into being more accessible and not just checking off one box, right? So, and it's broad. It's really broad because accessibility is it's not just one thing, right? So, internet accessibility for sure. It's the next big thing, and at our planned AGM coming up here in September, the key, the main theme of our meeting. It's AI and the future of accessibility for all. So yeah, so it's a good thing that you asked it because we are looking to build a future where accessibility is second nature to everybody.
Someone said something once that I think is a really wonderful thought to have, and that is that we all look forward to the day when we are so inclusive that access or accessibility is a term that we forget and never have to use anymore because it's just so automatic.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
that. That's second nature, right? So we don't have
Yeah.
to think about it. Like this is what it is. It's universal. It's a universal design. This is what
Right.
we want to see, right? So, and again, like I said, you're not doing it for them. It's not an us-them conversation. It's for all of us because it's one live event from one disability to the next. So it's creating a world where everybody can thrive and are empowered to thrive equally. So yes.
Right. Yeah. And I think that is so important. And I hope that day comes sooner than later, but I think it's still a ways off. But I think it is one of those things to really strive for because as you and I have both talked about today, everyone has gifts. We all don't have the same gifts, and no one should look down on anyone else just because we're different in some way. And
Mm-hmm.
and yet, unfortunately, all too often we do, which is a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right, Michael. And it's really sad how the world has turned um, humans against humans, and that's not the world we want to see. I'll tell you something. Um, there's a renowned writer in Nigeria, Chimamanda Adichie. She spoke about the Igbo word for love. Igbo is my local dialect, my native tongue, and the Igbo word for love is ifunanya, and that what that literally translates to is I see you. So Michael, if I love you, I see you beyond anything else. I see you beyond your abilities, beyond your color, beyond any other identity marker that defines you. I just see your soul. So sometimes I feel like the African language is not fully the English language doesn't do justice to the weight of our native tongue, right? So that's love. Seeing humans, seeing who you are for who you are, nothing beyond that. So
Hmm.
that's the world I look forward to having for sure.
And it is so important that we all look at each other for who we are, because one characteristic doesn't define us. Blindness doesn't define me.
Mm-hmm.
Your being from Nigeria doesn't define you. It's part of your experience, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't define you, and it shouldn't.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, then we have politicians, and they're all defined by what they do, and we can pick on them, so it's okay.
That's a smart move.
But really, it's one characteristic or whatever doesn't define us. It is part of our makeup, but it doesn't define us. And I think that's very important that we really understand that we are the sum of everything that we do and that we are. And a lot of what we do and what we are comes from the choices that we make. And that's why I really like Unstoppable Mindset, because it's a podcast that really helps to show people who listen and watch that they are more unstoppable than they think they are. And what we really need to do is to bring that unstoppability out in everyone. And if it comes out in the right way, it also means that we learn how to work more closely with each other. And I think it is important that we start having more of a sense of community throughout the whole world.
I like that, Michael. And I like your tie into the unstoppable mindset. Like it's in the mind.
Yeah.
The seed is planted in the mind, and that's where it blossoms. And it's all the environment you give to that seed. How are you cultivating your thoughts? What are you feeding your thoughts with, right? So how are you accepting values and projecting values and all of that? So it's in the mind. And so once the mindset is unstoppable, you can thrive, you can bloom, you can become, you can be established in every sphere that you choose. So that's the goal, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the unstoppable mindset for sure.
Yeah. It's very important. And I think that we all usually underestimate ourselves. And we need to work on not doing that. We need to demand more of ourselves about what we do. And if we do that, and the more of that we do, we'll find that we can go out of our what people call comfort zones a whole lot more, and we'll find that we can do a lot more than we think that we can.
Yeah, and I like that. And to your point, Michael, I also feel like we also need to give ourselves credit for all of what we've been through.
Yeah,
Feed yourself the empathy, like take time, take a break, recharge, and come back, right? Like I said, growth isn't always linear. Sometimes you need to take those pauses and recognize that you need to stop, recharge, and then go for it, right? So just give yourself credit for showing up. That's enough, right? You've shown up, that's enough. You've done the step one, that's enough. Show yourself some empathy. show yourself love, and that's the way it radiates to people around you for sure.
I like the idea of showing yourself love. You
Hmm.
should, and I mean that, and I know that you do as well. Mean it in a positive way. It doesn't have anything to do with ego and thinking you're the greatest thing in the world since sliced bread, but it is recognizing who you are and showing yourself as much as anything that that love is also a significant part of, or ought to be a significant part of your life.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And show up for yourself too.
And
Like
show up for yourself. Yeah.
you can be so many things to so many people, but how about yourself, right? So show up for yourself and let yourself enjoy you as a person, right?
Well, I love to say, I used to say I'm my own worst critic, and I've learned that's not the right thing to say. The right thing to say is I'm my own best teacher, because I'm the only one
Uh-huh.
that can really teach me. And I think that's so important, to make things positive. And when something happens that's not so positive, figure out what the issue is and how to address it.
Hmm.
But you can do that. We all can do that,
Mm, yes, for
which I
sure,
think
right?
which I think is so important.
And you can do that with love as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that's a good one.
So you do a lot of work in managing projects and so on. So how did you get to be a good project manager? Because that's part of obviously what you do. Was it something you were trained to do? You've picked up on? You have a natural talent for it?
Yes, so I've got training in project management, and of course, I did events management back in Nigeria. So it's all of that, the training, the experience, and of course, natural talents to knowing how to manage people and little programs. So that's built into the training that I also had. So yeah, it's all of everything, a bit of everything, I would say.
What do you think makes a good leader? That's a
All
toughie, I
right.
know.
All right, Michael, you want to do this?
This sounds dangerous.
Oh, I know, right? So, yeah. So, you know what I used to say? I try, I try to make people happy, right? But it's a really difficult job to be a leader, really difficult one. But my concept of leadership is showing people how to follow. So my concept is building leaders, right? Modeling the way for people to follow. So a good leader is a servant leader. They are listening, and you're also wanting to build leaders, and that is giving, empowering your following to do what you've done. So you're showing them you're doing it, and you're um, ensuring that you're leaving no one behind. So a good leader, it's leading and moving her team from behind. That's my that's the summary of what I would say. But then that doesn't always mean you're making people happy, because I always tell, um, I say this sometimes, that if you want to make everybody happy, you go sell ice cream. You don't want to take a leadership role, because you might hurt some people for sure.
Well, I think also it's important to to say that good leaders, and you mentioned it, train other people and teach other people how to be leaders. I think one of the most important things, and I always said it to every person I ever hired, was I didn't hire you so I could boss you around. I hired you
Hmm.
because you convinced me you could do the job I'm hiring you to do. But what you and I have to do together is to figure out how I can add value and enhance what you do. And that's really a tricky and challenging thing, because it isn't necessarily something that, as the official leader, if you will, is best done by me. It's oftentimes better done by the people I hire, who observe me, and observe all that goes on around us, and who will come and say, here's how I think I can do better with your help. And
Absolutely.
here's how I think you can add value to what I do. And I've hired a lot of people who can't do that. They can't go there. They're just not used to that kind of model. But I do know that the ones who understand it and who accept it and who follow through on it, those people do really well. because we learn to complement each other, and their skills and my skills, which are different, but can coalesce together to mean that the sum of the parts or the whole is greater than the sum of the parts because we work together.
That's right, Michael. That's right. And you've said it right there. Like a good leader is only as good. You as a leader, you're only as good as your team, right? So you want to make the team work, right? So yeah, that's my view on leadership as well. What's my team doing, and how am I supporting them to thrive and become? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really important. And I think that's really a big part of leadership. Certainly leadership has to motivate, and overall coordinate the efforts of what the team does. But the best leaders also know when to let someone else take the lead because they've got better skills in a particular arena or project than
Absolutely.
someone else does.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, in addition to being the executive director of Independent Living Canada, what else do you do? What are your other passions or hobbies, or what other kinds of things do you like to get involved in?
All right, that's fun. I am a Red Seal endorsed chef, so I cook. I love to cook. That's my escape. I cook for family. I cook for friends. I'm involved in my local community here in Saskatoon, and my local cultural community. So all of that are the things I do. And more so, I am just about publishing my first book. I started a long time ago. And so, yeah, I'm also an author at night. And yeah, so yeah, I'm excited about my book. It's called Jollof Life. And I'm excited for sure. Yeah.
When will it be published?
Um, I don't have a date yet, but I will let you know soon enough.
So roughly, when do you think it will be published? Just, I mean, is it 6 months
I
away, a
think
year, or 3 months, or?
I'm thinking 6 months away.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
that's exciting. That's exciting that you're working on a book.
Hmm. So do you know what jollof is, Michael? Let
No, what
me
is
let me
that? Tell me.
let me coach you. So jollof is a dish in Africa. It's a type of rice that is cooked in tomato broth and meat stock, and it's really really flavorful. It's red, it's rich, and all of that. It's so good that like I'm a caterer in Nigeria. I know I did say that when I was in Nigeria, I was a caterer. So if you go to an event, you must have a stand for jollof rice. So
Hmm.
it's really that good that there is a saying in Nigeria that any party without jollof rice is just a meeting, right?
There you
So
go.
it's that good. So I call jollof rice the queen of the buffet. So it has to be there. It just has to be there, and it's so relevant that there is an online feud amongst African countries on who makes the best jollof, right? So it's that good, right? So I took that idea and turned that into life. What life that is what makes you so relevant at what you do, and that's why I switched that around to jollof life, right? Just standing out and being the queen of your life or the king of your life, and owning that space and just being as relevant and having to dominate your space. So I cooked through a pot of jollof rice while writing that book, and I was expressing myself through the aromas and the flavors and cooking life through that book. So that's what the book is about.
Oh, that's exciting. And it makes sense that that's the title. And I kind of figured maybe that was sort of what it was when you said Jollof Life, but it makes perfect sense. What's your favorite thing to cook?
And now that you know, then it's
And of
jollof
course, it's
rice.
jollof rice. What's
It's
your
jollof
second
rice.
favorite thing to cook?
Oh, pasta. I'm
Okay,
Ita- I kind of feel like I'm Italian in my blood, right? So I yeah, I love to cook pasta.
that's pretty cool.
Hmm.
Do you make your own pasta from scratch or?
Oh, I do. I do.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So I buy store-bought ones, but I also make mine from scratch too. Yeah.
I'll bet it tastes better when you make it from scratch, though.
Oh, it's so good, Michael.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well,
Hmm.
and your book is coming. So, what other things do you like to do besides independent living and cooking or nutrition?
I so yeah, I'm involved in my local community, cultural community of women. So we're out dancing sometimes, and having local events. So that's something else that keeps me busy in the weekend. And I love that I'm able to connect with my culture here in Canada as well. So yeah, those are the things I love family. I love spending time with my family. That's um I've got men in my house. I'm like I tease sometimes and I say that I live with four men, right? So three of those are my boys and one is my husband. So I take some time to have the boy time. So I also soak myself in that as well. So I do some boy activities. So yeah, so um yeah, that's my
But you,
my downtime.
but you got to do some girl activities too.
That's when I have my me time.
Yeah, well, that's important to do. And the boys probably go off and do their things too. How old are the boys?
Yeah, I've got a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and an 8-year-old.
Ah, so all boys, no girls.
No, none yet.
There's another project for you.
Oh, Michael. We'll see. We'll
Yeah,
see.
I understand. No, I appreciate that. It's something. Well,
Mhm.
you've had a lot of experiences. What do you think, or how do you think your overall life journey has made your mindset what it is?
Oh boy, Michael, I again, I spoke about growing and evolving, so that's the mindset. I'm not there yet. Like I feel like um I'm not there yet.
Yeah,
I'm still growing and evolving. So it's just not being satisfied or settling for um nothing short of the best. I don't like to use the word perfection, but I want to keep going and keep pushing and get better
and
than just growing and getting better than my yesterday.
yeah, going and growing, and
Hmm.
that's important. Well, with that in mind, if you had the opportunity to do it, what would you go back and tell your 10-year-old younger self? What would you tell that 10-year-old Frida?
I
And
would
what
say
and more important, if you told her, would she listen? But anyway, what would you tell her?
she was loud for sure. She was loud. I know she'll be she was hyperactive, so that I know. So I will let her know one step at a time. You have made huge progress. You have made huge progress. I am so proud of you. I am indeed living your dreams. And I'm hoping that I have checked off most of the boxes that you've always wanted to do. So that's what I would say to my 10-year-old Frida. And
Yeah.
I hope that she listens to that.
Yeah, that's the trick, of course, is with any of us is to get the younger of us or younger people in general to listen. All too often we just think we know everything and it's so difficult to get people to step back. It's one of the things that I think we really collectively as a society need to do a lot more of, which is at the end of the day, at the end of every day, step back, think about what happened. How can you improve what happened, even the good stuff, but especially the things that didn't necessarily go as you planned? Step back and look at them and adopt a mindset that you want to teach yourself how to do it better, whatever it is.
Hmm.
That has got to be a way that we can help get others and ourselves to listen more than we tend to do.
Hmm. Yes, for sure. And looking to give back as well. Like, are you coaching and mentoring people? So yeah.
Yeah.
So if there are any Fridas out there, um, you can always reach out to people that would speak and leave seeds in your heart of greatness. Like,
Yeah.
see the good in every situation. Like I did see a good in the conversation that I heard about that lady or that woman at the time. So there is a
Hmm.
good in every situation you meet, right? So you pick the seed that you want, and then water it and nurture it to grow, and growth you always find.
Yeah. And I think that we can do that. We can do a lot more of that than we tend to do. But I think it's important that we do our best. And you talked about servant leadership, and it's as much about serving yourself and your soul as it is about being a servant leader to other people.
Absolutely.
And the thing that we never, well, I won't say we never, but the thing that we don't do nearly as much as we probably could is listen to our own inner voice that probably has the answers we seek if we would but learn to listen for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and I like that. To your point, serve yourself too, right? So you're a servant leader, serve yourself, listen to yourself, take those pauses, um, give yourself credit for all your hard work. And sometimes you get that guilt when you want to spoil yourself. I'm like, okay, this body made this money, right? So I need to take care of this body. So that's yeah, that's a way to give yourself some credit, like physical treats. Yeah.
Yeah, physical treats and not necessarily overdoing it, but physical treats um, and mental treats too.
Mm-hmm.
This weekend is a holiday in the United States, and I know that I'm going to take some downtime just to kind of relax. I think it's important that we all do that. All too often, when people go on vacations, I'm sure it's true up there too, but it's so true down here. They go on a vacation, they go somewhere, they do a lot of hiking and a lot of work, and when they come back from the vacation, they need a vacation because they work so hard.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, and it's
Uh,
important for us to learn to rest and let our brains recuperate too. Let our mind recuperate. But
yeah,
it
yeah. I
comes.
I I needed that. I needed that for sure. It's a long weekend here in Canada as well.
Oh,
So
good.
yeah, so I'm just gonna unplug and take some downtime and recharge. All right, so it's needed for sure.
It is. That's good. Well,
Hmm.
this has been a lot of fun to do, and I've enjoyed it, and I want to thank you for being on, and I want to thank all of you who are listening to us and watching us. We really appreciate you being here. I hope that you've enjoyed what Freda has had to say. If people want to reach out to you and maybe talk with you in some manner or contact you, how do they do that?
Hi. Oh, so I'm on Instagram and I'm on LinkedIn, Frida Uwa, and
And
yeah, you
UWA
can
is
also
UWA,
yes, UWA. So that's Frida Uwa
right?
on LinkedIn, and of course you can reach out through IEL Canada website and ask to speak to me. So yeah,
Well, cool. Well, I hope people will do that. I hope that everyone has enjoyed all of our discussions and your insights today. If you did enjoy it, we would really appreciate you wherever you're listening to us. Give us a 5-star rating. We value your reviews and ratings very highly. If you'd like to reach out to me, you are welcome to do so. I'm easy to find. You can email me at Michael H.I., Michaelhi at accessibe, accessibe.com. So I'd love to hear from you. If you know of anyone who you think would be a guest that we ought to have on Unstoppable Mindset, free to you as well. If you know anyone who ought to be a guest, we want to hear from you. Just before we started this podcast, I received an email from someone who said, I got a great guest. You said if I found anyone that I should reach out, and I'm reaching out, I got this great person. So we hope that all of you will do that, and that you will stick with us, and you'll be back next week to listen to more of, or in our next episode, more of Unstoppable Mindset. We really appreciate your time and value the fact that you're here. So once again, Freda, I want to thank you for being here. This has been a lot of fun, and we ought to do it again sometime.
for sure. Thanks for having me, Michael, and good luck and very well done. Good job with the unstoppable mindset.